Hello, my name is Branden Bryce. Welcome to the Veggie Gardener. The purpose of today is we're wrapping up the 4 fundamental plant needs. We're going to look at soils today. We're going to focus on drainage and fertility. If you find this information useful, please like, share, and subscribe, but mostly share. I'm trying to reach as many people as I can, as fast as I can. All right, soils. We got 4 soil functions. I drew a picture earlier. I'll try and put it up. So we got stability. First, soils need some place to stand, just like you need the ground to walk on. Second, water and air movement. As you hopefully remember from just a few videos ago, even the roots need air movement, but also water. And they need nutrients. Soil is also a home for soil fauna. That's just bacteria and stuff, you know. And we're going to focus on the water, air movement, and the fertility. Mainly because stability is like, you know, that's all you really got to say. And nutrient, and the soil fauna aspect, that can get kind of complicated. So we'll cover that later. Once we stacked up a few, how do I put this? Once we got some knowledge in our brain, then we can start really talking about soil fauna. Right now, the big key aspects are water and air movement and nutrients. So first, water and air movement. Drainage. Drainage is the ability for water to move. We're gonna wrap a bunch of different things in here, but it's the ability for water to move into the soil, through the soil, and then out of the soil. Now, as water does that, if water can move, air can move. So we're just wrapping them both together. Typically, they're talked about separately, but they move together. So for us as beginners, that's what we're going to look at. Compaction is the density of the soil. Now, this can result from several different things, but again, we don't need to get into all the nitty-gritty on what's going on. We just need to know that it happens. And it restricts your drainage. So drainage is good. That's our goal. Compaction is the obstacle that we're going to have to deal with. Now, the rebar test. So I'll show you the book once we get inside. But I got this idea from the Living Soils Handbook by Jesse Frost. Now you get a rebar. I'm gonna have to go look for a rebar and show you guys. But you pretty much just stick it in the ground and see how hard it is to stick in the ground. Right, so I couldn't find a rebar, but I found a hammer. So, you know, you gotta do with what you got. All I'm gonna do, stick this in the soil, goes in pretty far. Yeah, that went in pretty far. It's okay to have some resistance, don't worry too much about that. As long as it's not like, I should mention, go calibrate yourself. Try sticking this in other aspects of your garden, or well, let's say, if you have a portion of your garden that you haven't dealt with for a while, try sticking it there. You'll see how hard it is. Then try and fluff up this, or don't try, fluff up the soil, and then see how hard it is. It'll be a lot easier. Second is water and observe. Really for this, we're gonna water our garden, and we're just gonna observe how fast the water seeps in. Now, if you water the garden and it doesn't seep in that fast, it's probably not a problem. It's just a clue, and we'll get to how, you know, other clues to know if you have a poor drainage problem. In fact, let's get into it. After you water, I want you to wait a day. And then after that day, I want you to do a finger test, as we mentioned, last video. And really what you're going to be looking for on that finger test is one of the 2 extremes, too dry or too wet. As long as it's somewhere in between bone dry and muddy, you're fine. Even if the water didn't seep in that fast, as long as you're not muddy, as long as you're not bone dry. That's the really important part. If you do have one of those extremes, we do need to fix it. Generally, we can fix it through bed prep, and that when we cover bed prep, we're going to cover two different methods. They're going to be mainly dealing with the tilling system, and that just means moving the soil around. It's going to be, you know, just fluffing it up. For a lot of our problems, funny enough, we can actually just add organic matter, and that's adding compost. Compost or organic matter really is just a good buffer for either of the extremes. Compost will not only absorb water, but it will also help break up any of those really stubborn root soil clots. Any stubborn compaction, mainly also because we have to stir it in. One specific issue I do want you to watch for is what's called hydrophobic soils. Now, hydrophobic soils, hydro water, phobic afraid. Hydrophobic soils repel water. And you should only really be running into this if you threw some bags of like peat moss or coconut coir in your garden. Otherwise, you probably won't be dealing with this. However, if you are, how you can tell that you are is when you water and the water seeps in real fast. But then if you do the finger test right away, like literally just a few seconds, your soil is bone dry. Then you have hydrophobic soils. How do you deal with hydrophobic soils is you need to stir in your water. This might help with a friend. Have a friend with a shovel and stir in the water pretty much like you're stirring in cement. I know that kind of sucks, but you gotta fix the problem, right? So that's what labor is. All right, so before we end this video, I promised you that we'd talk about nutrients. Nutrients can get kind of complicated. And for the target audience, which are beginners, I want to keep it simple. So I'm just going to tell you to add compost. Now there's a lot of different things that we can talk about when it comes to compost, such as how to build it. And if you're not going to build it, which I don't think I have time to create a video, and you certainly don't have time to build the compost between now and April, I'm going to tell you to just go buy some bags. We're probably going to have to do a separate video on what to look for, what to ask for, and what to avoid when you're buying some compost. When it comes to adding compost, how much and how to, we're going to cover that under bed prep. Those will be in a few videos, and so that's really what I want to cover when it comes to nutrients. Add compost and be done with it. Cool. So that's the end of that video. I've been kind of having to play with the organization of these videos, and for that I think the next video topic we're going to cover compost. That way we can actually dig into some of this nutrient stuff and really compost, so that you can go look for compost before we actually get into bed prep. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a good day.